You can now mod your PlayStation 4 by simply putting in a homemade Blu-ray disc. Welcome to the BluRay Lapse exploit. Hi and welcome to Bytes and Bits. A few months ago, the latest PlayStation 4 exploit was released that allows us to jailbreak firmware versions up to and including 12.02. So this lapse exploit uses a vulnerability in the PS4 firmware to allow its code to get privileged access to the kernel, and that then allows it to load custom software, so payloads such as GoldHEN, into the system to complete the jailbreak and then give us a fully homebrewed console. Now, this is the latest installment of the running battle between the PlayStation 4 modding community and the Sony engineers. So every time that a software exploit is found and made available for us to use, so Sony then goes and blocks it on the next firmware release. So at the time of this video, in September 2025, the official firmware release is at 12.52, and the modding community's lapse exploit has jailbroken versions up to 12.02. So to check your firmware on your PlayStation 4, go into the settings options and then go to the system section and the system information, and there you'll see your firmware version number. So if you're on a firmware version of 12.02 or lower, you're in luck. And please do make sure to turn off your automatic updates immediately. If your firmware is above 12.02, then unfortunately you're going to have to wait for the next exploit to be found. But again, please do go and turn off your automatic updates to keep your firmware version where it is, so that will then just reduce any waiting times to keep them as low as possible as new exploits are found. Now, this lapse exploit then has been around for a little while, but we have of course had to find various ways of triggering it. So we can't just run the exploit like a game. We need a second vulnerability to give us initial access at a lower level that can then run the lapse code to take full control of the PlayStation 4. Now, initially, consoles on firmware versions above 11.00 needed to use a Lua game vulnerability to trigger lapse, and this involved buying one of the Japanese games, downloading a modified save file, and then using that to get it all to work. Now, naturally, the small range of games that this worked with jumped up in price and became pretty hard to get hold of. But recently then, a new Blu-ray drive exploit has been created that makes the whole process really as simple as inserting a disc. And that's what we're going to be covering in this video. So the exploit really is as simple as burning a Blu-ray disc image and then putting one file on a USB drive. The problem, of course, is that you do need a Blu-ray disc writer. Now, I'll be burning my own disc in this video to show you how, but naturally a number of budding entrepreneurs have already started selling ready-made Blu-ray discs on eBay and other outlets. So if you don't fancy laying out around £80 for a Blu-ray writer, you can pick up one of these discs for around £10. Now, one thing to make sure before you buy, do check that the disc is using version 1.2 or above of the exploit. Otherwise, you'll need to add some extra steps in the activation process, which just gets in the way when you want to play. But more about that in a second. Now, you're also going to need an exFAT formatted USB drive for the first time that you run the exploit. After that, of course, the exploit will have copied any files across to your internal disk and will just run from the Blu-ray drive. So to make your disk, we have to download a disk image, and that's available from the main GitHub repository from GoldHEN at this web address. So if you head over there, you'll see a bit of information about the exploit, and then of course there are a number of versions available. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the exploit is built from two parts. So the Blu-ray jailbreak, or the BDJB exploit, that provides this delivery mechanism So this actually works on firmware version 12.5, so hopefully that will provide some extra help then to develop exploits for that firmware. But then the second part, of course, is the actual Lapse exploit code itself. And again, this only works up to version 12.02. Now, as you can see from the repo releases, this has recently been updated to version 1.2. And the big fix in this version is the AIO fix. So this bug caused some games to crash, and the earlier versions of Lapse needed a patch to be loaded after you jailbreak the console. So in version 1.2 and above, this fix is built into the main code. So again, if you are buying a disc, make sure that you check with the buyer that it is running version 1.2 or above, otherwise you are going to need some extra steps in jailbreaking your PlayStation 4. Now, to build the disc, you just need to download the provided disk image ISO file. So head across to the latest releases section. Again, we want the 1.2 or if anything is newer than that. There will be then this ISO download file, so you just need to simply download that and then burn that to a blank BDR or BDRE Blu-ray disc. Please don't use any of the high capacity or Ultra HD discs if you have access to those. For this project, they might not work on the PlayStation 4. Now, you can do this on whatever type of computer you want. It's not locked to Windows machine. Just simply, as long as you can burn a Blu-ray drive from this disk image, then you will be fine. Now, if you do want to get your own Blu-ray writer, you can pick them up on Amazon for under £100 or I guess under $100. And I'll put a link in the description to the one that I'm using. Now, do be very careful when you buy one of these drives. A lot of the cheaper drives are sold as Blu-ray and DVD writers. And what they really mean is that they are Blu-ray players and can only write to DVD discs. So do make sure that you check. I myself nearly got caught out thinking that these would save me a bit of money, but if you do check the disc compatibility, they do actually say later on that they are only Blu-ray players, not writers. Now, it's also worth looking at drives with BDXL support. So Blu-ray discs contain writable layers, and each layer can hold about 25 gigabytes of data. So a 50 gigabyte disk uses 2 layers, but some drives can actually use 4 layers to get up to 128 gigabytes onto a single BDXL disk. And yes, the 25 gigabytes per layer doesn't work out for me either. But anyway, they do say that they can hold up to 128 gigabytes. So do have a look. I don't think the price difference is very much between them. So in my opinion, it's probably worth getting one that supports the higher density disks. So on mine then, I have used an internal drive, so I can plug it directly into my PC. But of course, you can get these as USB connected versions, and they will just simply then allow you to burn Blu-ray discs by just simply plugging the drive into a USB connection on your computer or your laptop. Now, to burn the disc, I'm going to be using a Windows application called Image Burn. But again, you can use any Blu-ray burner software that will work on your particular machine. And actually, the GitHub repository does suggest a few if you look a bit further down the listing. So for me, I'm going to pop a blank disk into my drive. I'm then going to open up the Image Burn app. I can then browse to find my ISO file. Again, this is the one that I have downloaded from the GitHub repository, and again, making sure it's a version 1.2 or above. I can then select my disk image. When we get back into the main screen, we do want to make sure that we click the verify option. So again, if your software offers this as well, do make sure you tick the verify option. And then we can go off and click burn. So this will start to write the data out to the drive, and that will take a couple of minutes to complete. And because we've got the verify option on, once it's finished the burn, it is then going to read the information back in and make sure that that matches with what's in the image file. So again, that just makes sure that we actually get a nice clean copy. So once that's all finished, we now have a completed disk. So all we need now then is the latest release of the GoldHEN payload. Now you can use other payloads, but GoldHEN is pretty much the best one to go for. So unless you have a specific reason not to, I would use this one. So this is the actual piece of software that our Lapse exploit is going to load in, and GoldHEN then gives us access to all of our Homebrew features. So if we head over to SiSTRo's page at this web address here, you'll get to the download page for GoldHEN. So make sure you select the latest version and then click through to that. Now the developer doesn't actually charge for the download, but if you want, you can make a donation. So do remember that a lot of work has gone into the software, and your support will of course help fund future exploit developments. Now if you don't want to donate, you just simply have to enter a 0 into the amount, and the system then won't charge you for the download. So just click on the buy for that and then go through the process, and at the end of that you will get a download link to download GoldHEN. So just save this onto your PC. So that was going to come down as a .7z archive file. So we do of course need an application that is able to open those, and again on Windows here you can either use 7-zip or I'm using the Shampoo Zip Pro software here. If you open that up, you'll find a range of files and folders inside that. This software is used for a range of different PlayStation 4 exploits, but all we're going to need for this particular one is the goldhen.bin file, and that's the actual payload itself. So make sure that your XFAT formatted USB drive is plugged into your PC, and then just copy that file across onto the root of your USB drive. So next we need to go on to our USB drive, and we're going to have to rename that file to payload.bin, and that's all lowercase. And once we've done that, we are done. So at this point, we have the entire exploit ready to go, but it's going to be worth us adding at least one homebrew application to make our life easier. So if you head over then to the Package Zone website at this web address here, you can download the PlayStation 4 version of the Homebrew Store from this link. So this will download a .pkg file, and you can save that directly onto the root of your USB drive. So this Homebrew Store application, it makes it really easy to install a whole range of homebrew applications directly from the internet, rather than having to download them on the PC and then copy them across on a USB drive. So now that we've got all of that, we are set up and ready to exploit the console. We now need to jump onto the PlayStation 4 and get that ready for the exploit. So first we need to go through the normal blocking and cancelling firmware updates. So go to your settings option, and then go down to network, and then turn off your internet connection. So if we then go back out to our settings, and this time go to System and Automatic Downloads, and here we need to turn off all of these update options, and that will just really stop our console from going off and trying to update its firmware to the latest version. So if we now go back out to the system settings again, and now scroll down to this option here for Enable HDCP. Now you need to make sure that this option is turned on, otherwise the PlayStation 4 won't be able to play Blu-ray discs. So lastly then, we need to go back out to our XMB, and then go to our notifications page, and then go to our download section. Now if there are any firmware updates listed, or any of them are downloading at the moment, then just highlight them and press the options button to allow you to delete them. So next we need to plug the USB drive into the console, and then insert the Blu-ray disc. Now you should see the disc popping up on your XMB. So if you now highlight that and select it to play it, you'll either get the exploit running, or you'll get a message saying the Blu-ray playback hasn't been enabled. So if you get this error message, you'll need to go back up to your settings menu, and then go to network and turn the internet connection back on again. Now at this point, of course, we are safe turning that back on because we have disabled our automatic updates. Once that's turned on, you'll then need to go back to the main XMB and then try the disk a second time. Now you might get the same message popping up again, so just OK that, but you then will probably get a message asking to be allowed to connect to the internet. So say yes to that, and you should find the Blu-ray drive will then download its software and it should then start the exploit. Now if this is the very first time you've used the Blu-ray drive, then you'll probably get this button guide, so just press the back key and then that should start the exploit running. You'll now start to see some information appearing on the screen, and this will either run all the way through and complete, or like me, you'll get the exploit failing. Now this is perfectly normal. The way the exploit works, it doesn't always manage to complete and get control of the kernel. So all you need to do now is to reset the machine and try again. So I'm just going to hold in my power button to actually shut the machine down, and then I will restart it, and then highlight the Blu-ray drive and rerun the exploit. So if all goes well, you should get this working its way through. So you'll see the messages coming up, and eventually you'll get a success message as it reaches the final stages. And then you'll see a number of pop-ups coming up saying that various patches have been applied, the USB payload's been found, it's been copied across to the main internal hard drive, and then you should get GoldHEN activating. And at this point, we now have a fully modded PlayStation 4. So all we need to do now is to press the PS button on our controller, and that will take us back out to our main menu. And then if we press the options button on our Blu-ray drive, we can then close that application. Now from now on, when you need to exploit the console, which you're going to have to do every time you turn it on or you reset the machine, you'll only need the Blu-ray drive. You don't no longer need the USB drive. The only time you're going to need it is if we get an update for GoldHEN. So new releases are coming out all the time to make various improvements and so on. But if that does happen, all you need to do is to re-download a version of GoldHEN, pop it back onto your USB drive, rename it again to payload.bin, and then just restart the exploit with the USB drive plugged in. So the exploit will always check your USB drive first, and if it finds a payload.bin file on there, it will use that and copy it across onto the console so that you can easily update it to the latest payload version. So to finish then, this is our first run. So we can now go back into our settings and back to our network. And if you haven't turned your internet connection back on, we can do it now. So this is going to allow the applications that we're going to be running to use the internet. But because we have activated GoldHEN once, it will now block any communications with the Sony servers so that our console is safe from getting updated or blocked or any firmware updates. And again, that is even once we power back on our console, even before we've run the exploit again. GoldHEN does actually alter the way the console works so that that communication with the Sony servers is always blocked. So it is totally safe to have the internet connected. We can also now set up a few things inside GoldHEN itself. So if you head across to the GoldHEN icon and then open that up, you'll get to the GoldHEN menu. So if we come down now to our server settings, so GoldHEN does provide you with an FTP server and a bin load server. So the FTP server allows you to transfer files from your computer across to the PlayStation 4 over your network settings. Again, it's very handy for saving you having to sort of create USB drives and so on. So I would always enable that so that we can use it. The bin load server allows you to send various payloads to change the way that the PlayStation 4 operates. Again, if you want to do that, then obviously you will have to enable the bin load server. So if we back out one step and then go down to our settings menu, there's a number of options that we can use in here. So the enable rest mode support is one you should turn on. So really, whenever the PlayStation 4 goes into rest mode, if it powers back on again, we want GoldHEN to still be activated. And this option here makes sure that that happens. Otherwise, of course, you would have to rerun the exploit. The next one then, we're using this Blu-ray Disc app, so the enable BD app auto kill. So once you run the exploit, that will make sure that the Blu-ray app is automatically closed. Again, which just saves you that little extra step. So once we've got these settings in place, we are now ready to start using our modded PlayStation 4. So the last thing I want to do in this video then is to just install our first bit of homebrew code. So if you go back to your XMB and then go to the GoldHEN option, which you should now find at the top on the left, and then just select that. So this brings up the GoldHEN menu. And if we go into the debug settings option, we'll find in there the package installer. So if you select that, it will scan the USB drive for any .pkg files. So we should see that store-r2 package sitting there ready for installation. And this of course is how we install any package files onto our PlayStation 4. So if you just select that package file to install it, that will then be installed onto your internal drive. So just let that run through and install. So once that's completed, you should now have a Homebrew Store icon on your XMB. So if you go across and run that, you may get a number of notifications popping up, but just accept all of those, and eventually then you'll drop into the store itself. And here you'll see a whole range of various homebrew applications. And the good thing about this is we can then just simply highlight the application we want to install. We can get some information about that application. And if we want to actually install it onto our PlayStation 4, we can just do it directly from here. And the Homebrew Store will download the files, install them, and set that up for us. So, you've now got your fully modded PlayStation 4 and you are ready for some fun. So over the next few videos, I'll be showing you what you can actually do with this. So we'll be learning how to play your PlayStation 4 games from backup files. We'll also learn how to play PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 games from backup files. I'll show you how to load a whole range of retro console emulators so that you can play really any console you want. And then much more. So please do make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss these videos, and check out my PlayStation 4 playlist to see which ones I've already released. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to click that like button, and I look forward to seeing you in another video very soon. So have fun with your modded PlayStation 4, and bye for now. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.